Hey guys, Emma here, coming on today to discuss with you all the last day that I ever used drugs. This is a day that sticks with me, obviously, and is something that I think about rather frequently and is a wonderful deterrent during the pretty rare moments where I do have cravings now. So, gonna discuss that with you. Everyone's people in recovery, their last day using drugs is all very different, but there's usually a commonality, and that is despair and hopelessness and just finally just being at a point where you're willing to do anything. And that's certainly true of my experience. As I've mentioned many times, I was a chronic relapser. This was, the last time I used drugs was not the first time that I got clean, but it was quite different than the other times, fortunately. But at the time, that was not, it was a very, very awful time. So the last day that I used drugs was June 16th, 2023. That day was quite exceptionally horrific. I was experiencing a variety of health problems. As I've mentioned before, I had a heart attack, and then I also had cardiac arrest from cocaine overdose. So that gave me some brain damage, as well as a horrific amount of pain, broken ribs. And then as time went on, during the last month of my using, I started to have massive water retention and swelling. And I noticed a change in my facial, I had the classic sunken in meth face, and that started to change. It didn't look too different from what I look like now, but it was a pretty stark difference considering I had this sunken in face. And I started having more pain. It was super common for me to have chest pain and have a difficult time breathing, but it progressed to the point of where I was really, really scared. I wasn't able to stand up for long periods of time. When I would take a shower, it would be like there were pain shooting out through my body, but the worst part was I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like my circulation was definitely screwed up, and I was having, at this point, I was having panic attacks constantly. And, it was just this massive feeling of impending doom. The last day that I used, I was beyond desperate and scared. I could tell I was having kidney problems. I already knew I was having heart problems. When you do 4 grams of meth a day, that's what happens. But so essentially, at this point, the drugs alone, just because when you do meth, at all for a long period of time, but especially a large amount, it becomes less and less effective. At the end, it's like, it keeps you awake, and that's about it. You're not able to have any kind of thoughts, do anything productive, have any kind of life. You basically, what I would do is just sit there and stare at the wall, and it would feel like I blinked and 24 hours had passed by. That's how it was at the end. It was like the time was moving so fast that I literally couldn't function in any way. And at this point, the only function that I was trying to do successfully was to get to treatment. And there were several times where I tried to get an Uber to go to the doctor, and when I got a ride to detox, it was like my brain was so broken that I would feel like it had been 10 seconds and it had actually been 30 minutes and they were gone. So I wasn't able, I felt completely and totally alone and terrified, because it was like I couldn't think, I couldn't process anything. And I know for a fact that the brain damage that occurred from my brain being deprived of oxygen for as long as it was didn't help that at all. So the last that I used, I was really, really, really scared. I knew I was gonna die, and I felt like I was running out of time, and I knew I was running out of time, but I felt like I was so stupid because of how my brain wasn't working the way I needed it to, that I wasn't gonna be able to make it. So I was feeling the weight of, I'm gonna die alone in this shitty apartment, surrounded by nothing but drugs and a bunch of junk that I found in dumpsters. And I mean, the biggest thing that hit me was I'm never gonna be a mom, because that's, ever since I was little, that's always been something I knew was a purpose of mine. Never gonna get to write a book, never gonna get to have some kind of career helping other people. My mom's gonna have to bury me. I'm gonna destroy her, gonna destroy the lives of my family, and bring this grief upon so many people. And everything in me was just like, that's not how I want this to end. I don't want this to be the end. I was so afraid. It just hit me so strongly. Like, I don't want to die. I'm not ready to die. Before, like when I had my heart attack, it was very peaceful. It was one of the most peaceful things I've ever felt. I wanted to go. But at this point, I realized, no, I don't want to go. There has to be another way. And I don't know what that is, because my ways literally never worked. So this is when I became completely and totally desperate. I didn't care what I had to do at that point. And I hadn't had that feeling the entire time. I had fought against help, which I think ended up serving a purpose in the end. I knew that I had to get every last bit of my using reservations and every last bit of like attachment that I had to using and thinking that that would somehow work for me. It was like I needed to see that that wasn't true and let that run its course. And I'm very lucky that I survived that, because I shouldn't have. And feeling your body failing you slowly is very scary. I could feel my body shutting down. I was having trouble walking, which is why I couldn't get to detox when I had this opportunity. So because I was having trouble walking, they were like, look, we can't admit you until you get a doctor's note saying like that you're ambulatory, that you can walk without assistance. And this proved to be much more difficult than I thought. And this was also a huge part of my desperation. Because, as I said, I stopped driving because of meth. I mean, one, meth makes you so paranoid and anxious. I was terrified of getting in trouble or of hurting anyone. I was like physically unable to drive because I was so anxious, and I constantly felt like I was gonna get in a car accident. So I like literally didn't touch my car for a very long time. The only times I used it were in an absolute, in my mind, complete like emergency to the fullest capacity. So I used it to get my husband committed, and then I used it to get myself to a doctor. And this turned out to be much harder than I thought. You know, it took everything in me. I remember I did like a virtual urgent care visit trying to see if that would work, and it didn't. So I went to an urgent care. This was my first time being around people. I mean, I had lived as a reclusive tweaker. I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. I can't express the level of terror that I had. Something that's so simple now, just going into a doctor's office, felt like the biggest mountain that I just couldn't get to the top of. And of course, as soon as I get in there, they clock me. And this was a pattern that would occur on and on and on. I know for a fact I looked like a tweaker. It's hard, I can't picture it because in my head I felt like I was acting normal, at least somewhat. But I know I was like twitching, and because my body would just convulse like that all the time. And I'm sure my speech was like rapid but slurred, and like, you know, I come in and I'm like, I need to get evaluated so I can go to detox. And then what happened would happen again. Several more times at urgent care. They had me immediately pee in a cup And when I tested positive for meth, they told me I needed to leave and that I had to go to the emergency room, and that was it. Sorry, I can't help you. And it was like a punch to the gut because, you know, I'd been avoiding detox for this whole time, and now it was like, I was like, if I don't go now, I'm going to die. So what I should have done is gone to the emergency room. Everyone knows the emergency room sucks. It didn't feel possible in the state that I was in, because as I said, I was so reactive. I was so paranoid. I felt like brain dead. Like I felt like just like a ghost. And I have a significant trauma from the emergency room. I mean, obviously I've been there many times. Well, I guess it wasn't really in the emergency room, but when I was hospitalized for, overdose, Seroquel overdose, I was abused by one of the nurses in the hospital. Luckily, he has been terminated and will not be able to do this to other people. Wasn't his first time doing this to patients. So, but yeah, that's something I still got to work through. I still hate the hospital. I mean, I know most people do, but now because of the state of mind I'm in, I'm able to go to the hospital if I need to go, despite the fact that it will ignite some PTSD in me. I'm able to know what to do to navigate that. At this point, I was completely incapable of anything. I mean, really, I needed somebody to do it for me, but that's not how. I mean, it is healthy to not step in and do that kind of stuff for addicts. So it's a very case-by-case basis in terms of like how much help is helping and like where's the line of what's enabling and what's not, essentially. So, you know, all my supports were like, you need to do this yourself. Until finally, I think my mom realized, like, my mom had just been waiting, you know, for me to die. It was like she had no more hope because I had fought against help for so long. And I think she realized that I was ready, or at least hoped. And I think she realized how impaired, like how I was like, all I could do was stare at the wall. I mean, literally, it was like, God, it was like trying to move a mountain, trying to do the most basic, simple tasks. I think she realized how bad it was. So I continued to have this problem with urgent cares, and it got to the point where I didn't want to go back to my apartment. I was hyperventilating in there. I knew I was going to die, and I felt like, well, this is it. Like, I can't get help. I'm going to die. It was the worst feeling I've ever felt in my life. I will never forget that feeling, and I feel that feeling every time I remember drugs. Even if it doesn't start out that way, I make sure if I just go back to the end of my using, I will feel that feeling that I will do anything to never feel again. Dying alone, feeling your body shut down, not having anyone there that you love at such a young age is horrible. Because, you know, you don't hear about deaths from stimulants like you do opiates, of course, but a lot of people die from them. It's just often not this instant death. That can happen as well, but your body, your kidneys and your heart especially start to just slowly fail. And this is why you don't see 70-year-old meth addicts. So I'm so grateful for what my mom did to help me. I remember the last time I used drugs very clearly. At this point, my body was so swollen and scarred up that I could no longer hit my veins anymore. And if you are a former drug addict, or current drug addict, you know that is the worst thing. God, it's so frustrating. Oh, it makes you want to like tear apart a wall. Like it got worse and worse. This is very TMI, but I ended up having to do it the other way that people do when their body is so damaged that they can no longer shoot up. So that was very degrading and also caused me GI issues. But so that already had me furious. The drugs weren't working anymore, really, though. That was the thing. It was kind of like that, not being able to hit a vein was kind of like a symbolism of where I was at with my drug addiction. It was like, this is not working. You can't, like, you fought against this too long. This isn't gonna work. And so the last time I used, I basically, you know, as drug addicts do, you want to get, you know, finish all the drugs. I had so much meth that I disposed of like a good amount of it. But the crack, I had this, you know, I need to finish it all before I go. I need to finish it all. So like when my mom came to pick me up, which was a huge, you know, sacrifice she made, and something that, you know, she was very understandably apprehensive about, considering like the life that I've been living and how resistant I've been to help. But I'm so forever grateful that she did that for me. She had said, I will take you to urgent care. If you can manage to get this note, I will drive you to detox. Because I think I'm just so grateful. She understood that I was like, my brain was broken. And I wasn't able to get myself there. I definitely wasn't able to drive myself there, because it was, you know, a good, not too far, but not, you know, at least an hour away. So, yeah, when she pulled up, I remember I was waiting for her outside in my car, and then I ended up going back in. And yeah, I remember smoking all of my crack with a massive panic, being very aware of this is the last time, and having the addict in me screaming like, no, you need more. But I'm glad that I intentionally didn't get more crack, because if I did, that would be an excuse for me to not go and to die. Because that's how strong that drug had, a very strong grip on me. But honestly, the fear overrode that finally. I needed out. I didn't care. I knew detox was gonna suck, but it didn't matter anymore. Because it was like, nothing can suck more than this. And I'm not gonna get another chance. And I'm just gonna be a statistic. So yeah, I came and I brought way too much stuff. And I couldn't lift the bag. My heart was like, blah, blah. And I remember like having arrhythmias as I tried to get this thing down the stairs, and I just pushed it. It was like a body bag. My mom was like, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like totally tweaking and acting weird. But I essentially, not too long after I got in the car, it was like this tiny little speck of hope. And I fell asleep for most of the drive, which for me was extremely rare. Like, it was the first time since I relapsed that I willingly allowed myself to sleep. And I just accepted it. And it was pretty late by the time I got to detox, but they admitted me. And yeah, detox was not pleasant. It's never going to be, but yeah, I fell asleep, of course, and slept for probably about 2 days. So it was, compared to my other detox, it was not as much sleeping, but still, you know, a ton of sleeping. So that was my last day using drugs. I'm so grateful to not be living that life anymore. It's so, God, my heart just like, it's painful to recount. But this is what drug use does, you know. I was 23. I didn't think any of that would ever happen to me to that extent, so no one's immune to it, but there's a way out. And thank God that fear and that acceptance has propelled me to where I'm at today, because I finally have become willing to let people help me, and just to be open to like knowing that I don't have this all figured out. I can't just rely on my intellect and my analyzation of things to try to navigate recovery. Like, this situation scared me so much that I didn't care anymore what I had to do. And, you know, everyone's bottom looks different, but as long as you have that willingness and like the gift of the gift of desperation and support. Like, you can get there. So yeah, I think that's all I've got today. Thank you for listening to this quite horrifying but important, you know, to discuss tale. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. I'm putting out new videos every week. Let me know if you have any ideas for future video suggestions or any general thoughts that you may have down below. And I will see you all next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye.